Welcome to our channel on roses. Today we're going to talk about garden paths and how you can use something such as cardboard, which you probably have a lot of in your home, to make a well-defined path in your garden. You can clearly see I have a lot of weeds in my paths right now. And the reason why I'm picking cardboard, not only is it free, again, most of you probably have it in your home, it's something that will smother out the weeds that I currently have in place and it will break down. If you've seen any videos on no-till gardens or things of that nature, a lot of folks put down cardboard first and then they pile organic matter on top of it to build a garden. I'm going to do something similar with these paths, but in this case, I'm going to put wood chips on top. So hold that thought for a second. But again, we're using cardboard because I have a lot of it. I had it at home and also at work, and it will meet my need, which is I have paths right now, but they're full of weeds. And by putting the cardboard down on top of the weeds, it will smother them and kill them. As I laid down the cardboard on the paths themselves, I made sure to go pretty much a single layer, but at the seams I wanted to overlap. I didn't want any of the weeds that were currently in place to push up on through. So I overlapped, and it really didn't take a long time to put out this cardboard. It was quite light and easy to put in the paths. So even though I have a lot of them, it was a pretty easy thing to do. Before I go on any more, I want to talk about the paths themselves. They were already clearly defined in terms of planning. When I planned out these rose beds, I made sure that I placed the roses multiple feet apart so they had room to grow. But I also learned from past mistakes. I had garden paths in New York, but they were just a little too narrow, so my wheelbarrow had trouble getting through. So these are nice and wide, people can walk them, and they're very efficient in terms of getting in and out when I apply my amendments such as compost. The thing I struggled with was, what do I want my path to be made out of? And that's where cardboard helped me lead me to wood chips. But before I got to that step, originally I was thinking something harder, a material like brick or stone. I like to do garden tours, and I wanted a surface that folks could walk on and they wouldn't lose their balance and it was easy to walk on. At the end of the day, though, I couldn't get over the fact that this would be permanent. If we ever sell the house in the future, I don't know how people would like brick paths or garden paths out there if they weren't really into roses like I am. So I didn't want something permanent, and the other thing was cost. So at the end of the day, again, over the course of 2 years, I just hated how in between beautiful roses, my paths were full of weeds. So I decided on wood chips. And that's what led me to the cardboard, because I needed something to be laid down to kill the weeds initially. It's really nice to have a defined path in your garden. It will help keep weeds down, especially if you put a barrier and then a thick mulch or other medium on top of it. It looks really nice. It allows you to walk in and out of the garden itself. It can reduce erosion. I see a lot of gardens with beautiful grass paths, and that's what I originally wanted before I even thought about stone or brick once the weeds got out of control. The problem with our grasses in the south, I have zoysia and centipede, and especially the zoysia, I have to at least a few times a year where I have the grass and other parts of the rose bed, it really sprawls into it, unlike a northern grass. So I didn't think that would be a good idea. I even thought about putting sod down, but I just didn't think that would be a good idea because of the sprawl. As far as the wood chips go, that's another material I've had experience with, and it's in my price range, which is free. So the cardboard, free. The wood chips free. You can see these piles at my local electric company. When they take down trees and clear right-of-ways along the power lines, often they leave a deposit of wood chips in our town that are free of use. I like the wood chips. I use them as the path material in New York. While it's not as hard as a stone, it's still enough texture that folks can walk on it pretty easily. One hesitation folks might have using wood chips in the garden, especially as a mulch in the garden itself, is as the chips break down, they tend to use some nitrogen in that process from the soil. And we, of course, want nitrogen for our roses. I'm not concerned with that for a couple reasons. Number one, these are in the paths, not the garden. And number two, I put down a lot of nitrogen throughout the year for my beautiful roses. So I'm not overly concerned with that. And speaking of wood chips, the thing I noticed in New York is as they break down, worms really like that environment. And with my roses really growing tall, especially on Fortuniana with the rootstock that spreads, I thought an organic material that breaks down with time and is favorable for worms would be better than something like a hard surface like brick or stone. So that's another advantage I thought for the wood chips. But bottom line is I just wanted something that looked good, unlike the weeds I currently have, and was easy to put down. And cardboard and wood chips certainly fit the bill. After you put the cardboard down, I wetted it, and that seemed to hold it down for that initial day. But a huge mistake I made, if you're going to do this, put the wood chips or any material on it right away. I wetted it down. It was Easter Sunday the next day. Went to church, and I got home, and it had dried out and blown all over our yard. So that cardboard is quite light and can really blow across your yard unless you put something on top of it. So learn from me and definitely put the wood chips down on it right away. You can see from these pictures, I had to, once I got the cardboard all back in the garden past themselves, and wetted it down again, I put everything from my shed on it, including buckets and hoses and pitchforks and shovels, to weigh it down until I could head to the wood chip pile. To bring the wood chips home, I just use those Rubbermaid tubs, 17, 18-gallon tubs I bring home compost in. They work really, really well. Where a full bin of compost is 75 or 80 pounds, it's at least half that weight, if not a third of the weight, for the wood chips. Very, very light and easy to transport. In terms of the wood chips, you want to sprinkle them on thick enough that obviously you cover up the cardboard, but also thick enough that it's not a big enough layer that you're going to prevent any weed seeds from germinating. And you just want a nice thick layer to walk on. So this took 2 trips to the wood chip pile, and that would be a total of 14 bins of compost. And again, if I can transport it in the minivan, I can get 7 of those easily, 6 in the back, 1 up in the middle, without even adjusting the seats. I can transport those bins in my old Civic. I used to do those 6 or 7 at a time. So you don't need a pickup truck for this. You can take many trips, and the wood chips are so light, they're easy to transport and put down in the garden. But again, do it right away. Don't lay the cardboard down and wait, because that cardboard will become airborne if it's windy at all. So this is what it looks like now. In the garden as we speak, you can see clearly defined paths. And right now you can see a difference between the wood chips and the mulch itself. I do want the paths to be clearly defined. So if it ever gets toward the same color of my mulch, I may switch over to something like pine straw. But for now, I'm very happy. It looks way better than what it was before. And if it's something I don't like, I can remove it or cover it back up and start with something else. It wasn't permanent like something like brick or stone. So comment below, what do you have in your paths? For a lot of you, it might just be grass and you keep it well weeded and edged. Comment, do you have stone? Do you have brick? Do you have pavers? What do you use in your garden? As always, I appreciate the comments, and please subscribe for more video updates on roses.